All right, beautiful Aries souls, gather close and feel the fire within you stir. Are you ready to hear something that will resonate with the very core of your warrior spirit? Because the cosmos is whispering a powerful truth about you, a truth that others are only just beginning to see. You have become dangerous, my friends. Yes, you heard that right. Not in a way that is cruel or destructive, but in a way that is so fiercely authentic, so unapologetically powerful, that it leaves those who underestimated you utterly speechless. They never saw this coming. Stay with me on this journey, because I am going to reveal why they mistook your passionate fire for a fleeting spark, only to be stunned when they discovered you are an untamable wildfire. Do you remember, dear Aries, the last time you truly forgave someone who didn't deserve it? When was that moment? The universe never forgets the battles you fought in silence, the fiery tears you swallowed to keep moving forward. But now, the cosmic light is turning back toward you, illuminating the warrior you have become. Perhaps you haven't fully grasped it yet, but you are radiating a new kind of power, one born from the ashes of who you used to be. And that, my incredible Aries, is precisely what confuses them. They thought you were just a fleeting flame, but they have discovered you are an entire blazing inferno, and an inferno never, ever needs permission to roar. If you feel this fire of transformation burning within you, let me know in the comments below by typing, "I am reclaiming my fire." And if you haven't already, please do me the honor of subscribing to Astrology Unlocked. I want to make sure you never miss these cosmic truths, crafted just for you as we walk this path of empowerment together. Now, let's journey back to that pivotal moment when everything began to shift. The moment when you, a courageous and often patient Aries, decided that standing still was no longer an option. They thought you were still there, waiting for them to catch up, but your warrior heart had already charged ahead. There is one fundamental truth that those who took you for granted completely overlooked. An Aries has limits, not limits in your boundless love or your fierce loyalty, but absolute limits on your patience for those who dim your light. They never imagined that one day you would simply stop. Stop waiting, stop hoping, stop looking in their direction with that fiery passion in your eyes. In their minds, they held a deeply flawed belief. They thought you would always be their anchor, the place they could return to after their own battles were lost. They mistook your incredible strength for an endless well of forgiveness. They believed your heart, though fiery, was soft enough that as long as they returned, you would flash that brilliant smile, throw open the door, and welcome them back into your warmth. But this time, they returned to an empty space. You were no longer there. You weren't raging. You weren't shouting from the rooftops. You didn't waste your precious energy on blame. But you also weren't in the same place anymore. You had moved on, swiftly, quietly, and with the unshakable resolve that only a true warrior possesses. And that, my friends, is what shocked them to their very core. Perhaps they expected you to leave in a blaze of glory and pain. But no, you left because you had awakened. I don't know where you are as you listen to this message. Perhaps you're in your car, preparing to conquer the day, or on a walk, feeling the powerful energy of the earth beneath your feet. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. If your heart has ever been wounded by someone unworthy of your fire, you will understand that what I am about to share is not just a video. It is a mirror reflecting your own magnificent strength. I have been there too. I used to love with such intensity that I risked burning myself out. I used to temper my own flames just to keep a relationship from turning to ash. I used to choose to stay, fearing they would be lost, without my light, never realizing that I was the one whose spirit was dimming with every passing day. And then one day, I stopped. Not because my love had extinguished, but because I realized with breathtaking clarity that if I didn't walk away, I would never find my own brilliant light again. Aries, you understand that some silences are not a sign of surrender. They are a strategic retreat, a sacred moment when your soul crosses the battlefield between who you were and the warrior you are becoming. It is that profound moment when you no longer feel the need to explain your fire, no longer need anyone to understand your passion, and certainly no longer need to beg for the loyalty you so freely give. Because you have finally understood a fundamental truth. Those who truly cherish you would never force you to beg for anything. And so, you vanished. As swift and quiet as a change in the wind, but that disappearance became the loudest, most deafening alarm for the one who was left behind. They came back eventually, with empty hands and a vague sense of regret that had no real substance. And what did they find? Not you. They found an emptiness, a space that was no longer filled with your vibrant energy, your patient waiting, or your gentle gaze. Only your absence remained, and a door that was forever closed. You didn't leave behind a river of tears. You left behind the unshakable truth. And that truth is this: you have finally learned how to love yourself with the same fierce loyalty you once gave to them. Because even the strongest fortress will crumble if it is neglected for too long. Some may call it avoidance. Others, who do not understand your nature, might even think you are weak for walking away. But anyone who has never stood in the lonely shoes of a warrior who always gives their all will never comprehend the immense courage it takes to choose to stop. Because you didn't walk away to inflict pain. You walked away to protect your very soul. Aries, perhaps you're thinking, but I still love that person. And that is not wrong. True love, true passion, doesn't just vanish because someone proves themselves unworthy of it. But do you know what is infinitely more important than that love? It is the fire within you. It is the peace you earned by walking away from a battle that was not yours to win. Sometimes, the bravest and kindest thing you can do for yourself is to let go of the one you love. I know you have never shared this with anyone. Maybe as you hear these words, something inside you feels like it's cracking open. But do not be afraid. That is merely the breaking of an old armor, the shattering of the person you used to be, to make space for someone new, someone strong, awakened, and as radiant as the dawn after a long night. You don't need to waste your energy on blame, because the truth is, no one can return to a place they once abandoned and expect the fire to still be burning for them. You have changed, and that is the most magnificent victory you have ever achieved for yourself. Maybe they will never understand the depth of your transformation, but you no longer require them to. Because today, as you step boldly away from your old role, the universe is clearing a path before you. Not for you to become someone else, but for you to return to the most authentic version of yourself. No longer the old you, the one who was hurt, the one who waited. You are now a fire magician, a being who can alchemize pain into power, one who needs no one else to validate their worth. Your presence alone, your vibrant energy, is what makes the world take notice. And as you continue to walk deeper into this incredible journey of self-discovery, you will realize something even more powerful than leaving. You will realize that you don't need revenge, because you have become something they can no longer control, something they can no longer contain. And that, my dear Aries, is the beginning of a new kind of power, silent, profound, and absolutely unshakable. You don't need to shout from the mountaintops or scream to prove your strength. Your healing, from the very beginning, was never about resistance. It was about a return to your own center, a rebirth of your own fire. That's why, when I see the Magician card appear for you, I know you have begun to speak the new language of your soul, the language of powerful transformation. You have learned to use the very things that once tried to burn you as fuel to light the way for others who may be lost in their own darkness. You no longer hope for a savior to ride in on a white horse. You have become your own hero in the most magnificent and extraordinary way. Perhaps the one who hurt you still believes you will fall, that you will stumble without them. They have no idea that the very cracks they tried to create in your foundation have become the portals through which the most beautiful version of yourself has emerged. And on that journey, you stopped begging for kindness from those who had none to give. You turned your focus inward. You looked back at your own journey. You embraced yourself with a warrior's love, and you listened to the powerful voice of your soul. I remember a moment in my own life, sitting under a quiet light, holding a piece of paper filled with all the things I had never said. I wasn't writing it to send to anyone. I was writing it to read aloud to myself. I wrote down the pain, the frustration, the disappointment, and then I watched as it slowly, miraculously transformed into gratitude. Not because I could forgive them in that instant, but because I knew that if I couldn't be grateful even for those who hurt me, I would never learn how to truly love myself with the fire I deserved. Dear Aries, you do not seek revenge. You don't need to. Because no one can control a soul that has learned to heal itself. They cannot predict your next move. They cannot comprehend why you remain so generous and open-hearted even after they abandoned you. They cannot believe that you could bloom so brilliantly in the very place where they tried to make you wither. And then you began to create your own light. You filled the emptiness not with someone new, but with the boundless love you had forgotten to give to yourself. You didn't just move on. You moved on with peace. You didn't just survive. You began to truly live. You know, some souls are born with a mission of transformation, and Aries, you are chief among them. You have the innate ability to look directly into the heart of pain, not to dwell there, but to turn it into a lesson, a victory song, a prayer, a guiding light for others. Others may use power to control. You use your compassion to set yourself and others free. Others may use silence to wound. You use stillness to heal. Others hoped you would fall, but you chose to rise stronger and brighter than ever before. You don't need anyone to apologize because you have journeyed so far beyond the place where their apologies could even reach you. And then you stood up, armed with everything you ever wanted from others. But in the end, you were the one who gave it all to yourself. Patience, kindness, gentleness, and unwavering safety. You began to rewrite your own story, not with the ink of sorrow, but with the golden light of awakening. I know that at some point you may have felt too fragile, too dependent. But look at yourself now. You are here. You are listening to a message about healing. You are present not to complain, but to be reminded that you have already overcome. You didn't need anyone to fill the void. You turned it into a sacred garden and replanted your life in a place that had once been ruins. I don't know what you have planted there. Perhaps it's a new faith in yourself, a new career path, a more stable and loving embrace, or simply the profound feeling that you no longer have to beg anyone to stay. Whatever it is, that place is no longer a wound. It is a powerful testament to your rebirth. I want to invite you to share something, but only if you feel ready. Have you ever felt a sense of gratitude for someone who hurt you? Because it was through them that you learned to love yourself more fiercely. That is a strange and beautiful kind of gratitude, a gift from the universe. We get hurt, but then we awaken. We lose, but then we find something infinitely more precious. And dear Aries, you are not fragile. You are simply learning not to give your warrior's heart to hands that have not yet learned how to hold something so precious. They once thought they could come back and find you in the same place, but you are not there anymore. You have soared. You have become something they cannot control, and that confuses them more than any words of anger ever could. Not because you wanted revenge, but because you have become too beautiful, too solid, too whole. Your very presence now reflects their own lack, their own shortcomings. And that, my friends, is the true power of an Aries who has healed. In the next part of our journey, we will look back at all the old wounds, not with resentment, but with the clarity of a battle-hardened general, because they were the invisible hands that pushed you to the edge so that you could finally learn how to soar higher than you ever dreamed possible. And then you will understand this more deeply than ever before. Karma doesn't need to knock on the door. Karma watches in silence. Dear Aries, some wounds don't come from one single act of betrayal. They come from 1,000 little cuts, from trying to understand, trying to accept, trying to love just one more time, only to feel yourself shrinking a little bit more each time. And the most painful part is that in their eyes, you were somehow the one at fault. They blamed you for the very things they themselves did. They labeled you as too sensitive, too weak, or too difficult. They made you doubt your own powerful intuition. When you cried, they told you that you were overreacting. When you were silent, they said you were being cold. When you walked away, they called you a quitter. But the truth is, it was never your fault. You were just shining too brightly, and your light blinded them. They left not because you were wrong, but because they didn't have the courage to face the brilliant light you carried. They were not strong enough to stand before someone so sincere, so authentic, without a mask. And so they turned away, trying to pull you into the darkness where they felt more comfortable. But this time, you didn't follow. This time, you stayed with your light. This time, you stayed with yourself. And so, karma began its silent work. But karma never knocks. It doesn't shout. It doesn't warn. It doesn't come in the form of dramatic revenge. It simply stands there in silence and witnesses everything. Karma saw you when you were in pain, feeling like you couldn't breathe. Karma saw you remain kind and generous, even when you had every right to strike back. Karma saw you choose forgiveness, not because they deserved it, but because you deserved to be free. The Ten of Swords appears, and I know you have been betrayed, not just by a person, but by the very trust you so freely gave. You didn't fall from one single knife wound. You collapsed because you kept believing, kept loving, kept giving, and no one came back to hear the sound of your heart breaking. And then one day, you didn't collapse anymore. You awakened. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to return, because you have realized that they cannot give you what they have never learned to cultivate within themselves. Some endings don't need to be spoken, because the simple fact that you are still here, still beautiful, still kind, is the lesson they will spend the rest of their lives trying to learn. You forgive not to bring them peace, but so that you don't have to carry that wound for 1 second longer. And Aries, it is your silence that unsettles them the most. When you were still angry, still blaming, They felt a sense of security, but when you went silent, they knew you had truly left them behind. I once read a line that said people fear the most when you are silent and still doing well, because in that moment, they know they no longer have a chance. You don't write blame-filled letters, you don't send a final angry message, you don't post sad statuses online. You just disappear. And that is the biggest sentence for what they have done. They used to think you couldn't live without them, but it turns out you live better, brighter, and more fully when they are no longer around. And then you walk away without ever looking back, because you know the one who needs to apologize is not you. I don't know if you have ever forgiven someone without hearing an apology, but if you have done that, you are living on a very high level of consciousness, a place where self-respect and compassion no longer contradict each other, a place where you don't need to win, you only need peace. Aries, if today you still carry the question, why didn't they apologize to me? Then I want to send you this answer, because they are not yet mature enough to understand how deeply you were hurt. But that no longer matters, because you don't live your life waiting for an apology. You live to perfect your soul, and you are doing that beautifully. You heal, you uplift others, you spread kindness, you light up every room you enter, and you no longer allow the past to define your worth. Something truly amazing happens when you stop needing an apology. You begin to thank the wound for leading you to this awakening. You begin to thank the one who hurt you, because without them, you would never have known how truly strong you are. And you begin to thank yourself for not giving up. Aries, I know you don't take revenge. You have never wanted to hurt anyone, but you have become too strong, too serene, too authentic for anyone who once underestimated you to feel comfortable seeing you again. Not because you have changed, but because they were never bright enough to walk beside the brilliant light you carry. That is karma. No revenge is needed, just the right moment, and everything reveals its true nature. And then, you will see that what was lost never truly belonged to you. What stays is a part of your soul. Awakened Aries, you have walked through the darkness. No one needs to certify that. Your very presence here today is proof that light always finds a way. And if you are ready to take one more step, not just to heal, but to be truly free, then the next part of our journey will help you understand a profound truth. They are not angry because you left them. They are jealous because you no longer need them. Aries, there is a kind of freedom that confuses others. It's not that you walked away, but that you never looked back. There's no more holding on, no more waiting to be seen, and no more needing them to feel important. That's what makes some people more unsettled than being left behind, because when you no longer need anyone, you cannot be controlled. There were people who once thought they were the center of your universe. They were used to you needing them, calling their name, doing everything in your power to keep them. But they didn't realize that an Aries who has learned to stand on their own will never go back to begging for affection from those who once made them doubt themselves. Freedom scares many people, especially those who have never dared to stand alone. And you, my dear Aries, not only learned to stand, but you also learned to walk away without needing any applause from behind. You don't need noise to be noticed. Your silence is the loudest echo. The day you stopped trying to fit into someone else's life was the day you began living your own. You stopped forcing a smile. You stopped acting. You stopped needing to prove that you were worthy of love. You just started living true to the deepest part of your soul. And when you stopped, the old world slowly drifted away. Not because you pushed them out, but because the frequency you are vibrating on is now different. When you no longer need external validation, those who felt big when you were feeling weak suddenly become small in the space you now create. And they feel jealous, not because you are higher than them, but because you no longer need them to feel enough. You once needed their approval to feel accepted, but now you know that true value doesn't lie in anyone's eyes. It lies in how you treat your own soul every single day. Peace is not a place. It is a state you enter when you no longer need to be seen, to feel that you exist. They used to think you couldn't live without them, but now you are living, not just living, but more fully and vibrantly than ever before. You don't blame, you don't complain, you don't hold on to anger. And that is what worries them the most. Because no one dares to live that lightly, without holding on to resentment, except for those who have truly healed. You may be walking alone, but you are not lonely, because now you are walking with your truth. The truth that you are enough. The truth that you don't have to try twice as hard to receive half the love. The truth that every effort to keep those who cannot stay only brings you further from yourself. And when you realize that, the old doors will begin to close. Not to punish you, but to protect you. To protect you from places where you had to shrink yourself to fit in. To protect you from people who only loved you when you needed them. To protect you from your old self, the one who thought that love had to be a trade. Now, you don't need to trade anything anymore. You don't need permission to live your truth. You don't need anyone to understand you, to keep walking your path, because the peace you now have doesn't come from them changing. It comes from you no longer needing them to. Aries, your journey is reaching a very special point where you are no longer hurt by what others cannot do, where you realize you don't need much to be happy, but you do need the right things. And one of the most important of those things is truth. So stay, because in the next part of our journey, you will see clearer than ever before that truth always has its own voice. And when that truth rises, you will be the only one still standing. Aries, after everything you have been through, the truth no longer scares you. It is no longer a double-edged sword, but the first light in a room you once lived in for so long in darkness. When the sun card appears, I don't see someone who has fallen and just gotten back up. I see a soul that was once shattered, now standing in the brilliant sunlight of their own being. No longer bowing, no longer avoiding, no longer running. Just one stance, solitary but proud, steady, as if every storm was just a test for that quiet resilience. There are things in you that were once buried very deep, not because you didn't want to face them, but because you once believed you wouldn't be able to bear that truth if it surfaced. But truth has a very gentle way of showing up. It doesn't arrive when you are not ready. It waits until you are strong enough to no longer see it as an enemy. Aries, today, you are strong enough. You no longer need someone to say it out loud. You no longer need clarity or proof, because you have felt it all for a long time, through your intuition, through your heart, through the tears that have fallen. And now, as the truth begins to reveal itself, you don't need to resist or explain. You just stand there, like someone who has known all along and has forgiven long ago. Truth is not always beautiful, but it always sets you free. It peels away the masks. It renders all facades meaningless. It brings everything back to its essence. And the miracle is not only do you accept it, but you stand firm before it. That is something many people cannot do. They build their lives on illusions. They craft images to be loved. They cover up to be accepted. And when the truth comes, it sweeps everything away. But you are different. You once lived truthfully, even if it came at a cost. You once loved genuinely, even when betrayed. You once believed wholeheartedly, even when hurt. And now, when the truth appears, it takes nothing from you. It only confirms that you were always right to live true to yourself. Light is not something you find somewhere out there. It is what you have been emitting quietly from the times you didn't give up, from the times you chose what was right instead of what was easy, from the times you stayed kind even when it wasn't returned. Aries, you didn't just survive, you have been reborn. You turned everything that once tried to break you into the very steps that lifted you higher. You are a reminder to others that light always exists in the darkness if we dare to believe. You are proof that no one can kill a soul that has chosen to live truthfully. And you are the clearest evidence that in the end, truth always wins. So what inside of you was once hidden that today you are ready to let step into the light? What was once your fragile part that you tried to hide, that you now embrace as the most beautiful part of who you are? I invite you to pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is there a part of me waiting to be seen, waiting to be accepted, waiting to be loved by me? Because, Aries, you don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to stop rejecting yourself, even for one more time. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to shout. You don't need to win. You just need not to fall. And that alone is enough to make others never forget you. Your existence, your peace, your kindness are already a quiet yet powerful declaration. I have walked through fire, and I still choose love. And people like that are always the ones still standing when every illusion collapses. Aries, if someone ever doubted you, ever left you, ever hurt you, then today, the truth is clarifying everything. You don't need to say a word. You don't need to do anything. You just need to be yourself, and the light you carry will do the rest. And if you are wondering what is next on this journey, then here is what you will deeply feel in the next transition: that you no longer see the truth with fearful eyes, but with the gentle gaze of someone who knows everything has its reason. And the reason you are still standing today is not because you are stronger than others, but because you chose not to betray yourself. And sometimes that is the bravest choice in this life. Thank you, the one who stayed until the very end of this journey. I know not everyone has the patience to fully listen to a healing journey, but if you are still here, it means a part of you is truly transforming. I hope that what you have just heard isn't just words, but a whisper you needed to hear again, a deep call from within, a gentle touch to the wounded place that is slowly closing. Aries, never forget that you once walked through the dark, unseen, and you were the one who lit the lamp to lead yourself out. No need for anyone to know, no need for recognition. But you know, and I know. And if you feel this video has helped you in some way on your journey, please don't hesitate to share your thoughts below. Who knows? Your words might be the light for another soul who is lost. I look forward to seeing you again on our next journeys, where we not only heal, but truly live in peace, in lightness, and in wholeness, just as you have been and are becoming.